hole that is reality. It's about casting light on a whole spectrum of topics. Our interests cover and touch many bases. We snapshot the stories that have caught our eye in the news, information that raises eyebrows and questions, running stories between the lines, covering how they may affect us all, with insightful interviews and features looking at science, technology, discoveries and the environment, as well as at history, mysteries, strange tales and the Fortean, all rounded up into a convenient package and delivered straight to your mind. So whether you're here listening in search of knowledge or dipping in for entertainment, we're people just like you, passing our social commentary on what inspires and affects us. Welcome to Rabbit Hole That Is Reality, episode 15, in association with UK Collapse Radio Network. Thank you for choosing to spend your time with us here tonight, and I shall be your host, Kristian Lander, and this is the Rabbit Hole That Is Reality. So where are we going to start today as we delve into the rabbit hole? I think the most logical place to start really is Black Friday. I worked Black Friday, and I certainly saw what it was like on the front lines of what effectively was the mad rush for consumerism at its most barbarous. I had a reply from the Conservative Party. Do you remember there was a story that we covered a couple of weeks ago and was in the press as well in regards to their pre-2010 documents and promises and information up on their website being deleted? Well, I emailed them about this and I had a reply. Are we in China? Social services take a pregnant mother to court and a judge rules in favour of having the baby removed. Councils are to use all available bylaws to ban soup kitchens. Another couple have been found guilty of murder by the parenting book guide called To Train Up a Child. Police stations are to be built and run now by G4S. We spoke to a representative of a private fostering company who had some really intriguing things to say. Sensible and responsible internet use. What is VPN? What is Tor? Why should we be using them? After the break, we're going to be talking about Comet ISON, rather separating the truth from the bullshit. And we're going to be rounding up with our Fortean stories that have caught our eye in the news. And my God, we've got some crackers today, guys. This is going to be the rabbit hole that is reality. All this and much, much more coming right up. So let's go back in time, Let's go back in time to last week Friday in particular, Black Friday. Known famously throughout America, where thousands of electronic devices go dirt cheap, basically, and what happens is thousands upon thousands of zombies pile up against Walmart windows. You've seen the pictures online, you've probably already seen the videos, where as soon as the doors open, it literally becomes zombie panic of everyone trying to get hold of deals. Well, let's just say, my experiences on Friday, I didn't think it was going to be as crazy as it was. And it was, excuse my French, it was fucking insane. It really was. I saw a woman get hit in the face with a television. I saw people literally fighting over mountain bikes and pulling them back and forth from each other. And then some guy letting it go into a woman's stomach. I saw, what did I see? I saw a woman trying to pick up a television. What happened is a guy literally dived over the top of her to pick up the light on the pallet, and then she hit her in the face as he picked it up. And didn't care. It was blind panic. I mean, the store had 27 pallets that were shrink wrapped in black plastic. Strictly speaking, the store didn't actually know what was on them. At 6 o'clock in the morning, the prices were given to the store. The products were then laid out at the front of the store, and we would sell them. And honestly, they were all pretty much sold by about 9:30. 27 pallets worth of stock. It raised £46,000. I saw the stats this morning. Phenomenally good business. So good, in fact, they're going to be doing it next year. And this, of course, was arranged in a very short period of time, in fact, for that supermarket, who obviously currently is my employer. The craziness was actually compounded by the fact that Friday also saw the launch of Sony's new PlayStation 4. So at the front of the store, these kind of groups were intermingled with each other, and as the doors opened, they kind of intermingled, started fighting against each other, elbows left, elbows right. It was pretty crazy when the doors opened. And I hadn't seen anything like it, except of course on the internet, looking at the videos of Walmart. But the thing is, what drives this? What really drives this situation? Well, we have a distortion of priorities that's proven time and time again to be of incredible detriment to ourselves, our future, and more so to sustainability. And the truth is, people don't need these products. They don't want these products. It's an artificial need based on the low prices. Rampant consumerism, no, it's just greed. And it's greed to have more than the other person next to them. I saw it time and time again that day, where people were just grabbing like 3 or 4 TVs into a trolley. They didn't need 3 or 4 TVs, the fact that the price seemed good and therefore they had to have it before anyone else got it. And that really is what Black Friday was all about. Well, the news story that broke and went viral a couple of weeks ago was in regards to how the Conservative Party, and indeed the Labour Party soon after, were deleting all pre-2010 documents and information. And from this also, the internet itself, they had clearly gone very active deletion. Now, I emailed the Conservative Party on what it is they were actually doing, and I had a response. So, let me read out the email that I sent them, and I'll read back their reply. I am doing a citizen journalism piece on research of how policies change and evolve while the government is holding office. Today I see virtually all articles, pledges, statements and press announcements have been erased from your website, and in the press, according to AP News Sources, New Statesman and the Computer Weekly, amongst many others, there is an active deletion process seemingly in effect on all pre-2010 information. As a concerned citizen, and for historical reference, there needs to be a reason and an explanation to this deletion. It seems further to this, the information is being deleted from the Internet Archives itself. Could you please give me an explanation? So, I didn't think I would actually hear any information at all, let alone a reply. And I had received a reply. It came to me on the 18th of November, and it reads as thus. I'm writing on behalf of the party's chairman, the Right Honourable Grant-shaped MP, who has asked me to reply to your recent email. Firstly, and it is very important to note that the content of this website has not been deleted, nor has any content been deleted, as described by various media outlets such as Sky News. We are working to ensure that our website keeps the Conservative Party at the forefront of all political campaigning. The changes that have been made will allow people to quickly and easily access the most important information we provide, and also cleaning up Labour's economic mess, making the difficult decisions and standing up for hard-working people. Of course, we also acknowledge the importance of accessing historical Conservative Party material, and for this reason we will be working to make the content searchable online in locations such as the British Library Archive and at the Conservative Party Archive. Thank you for taking the time to get in touch. Yours sincerely. And the reply was James Moncrief, who is office to the party chairman. So, let's look between the lines here of what they're actually saying to me. Obviously, I made the statement to them that information is being deleted pre-2010, and why is it basically being deleted? They're looking at their reply. They're saying that the website, the information has not been deleted, as described by outlets. Well, actually, it appears that it has, and it says they're working to keep the website at the forefront of political campaigning, and therefore they've made changes. Now, as I said on the last show, I do completely understand why a website of a political party, or a manifesto, or you have policies, if they have changed for whatever reason, I understand that they need to be the current ones that are on display. I do. I understand they need to be the most current ones, and if things did not work out in the past, you need to actually have them removed, because they didn't work. But you also kind of need to explain why. And this didn't happen. It was just deleted from the internet utterly and completely. The dig here, it is a sharp dig. It says about how we're cleaning up Labour's economic mess. Really? I mean, really? You seem to be doing a very good job of your own mess while you're in power there, Mr. Conservative Government, and making the difficult decisions and standing up for hard-working people. But that doesn't really explain the decisions they're making, or why they're choosing to delete any information. It just says, basically, it's Labour's fault. Really, isn't it? Isn't that what they're actually saying there? The reason they're deleting the information is because it's Labour's fault. And of course, I did make mention that it needs to be accessible in the future, and it does state that they're going to be putting the information on the British Library Archive. Well, they've got considerable detail to removal of the content information across the web. I mean, how do we know what they're going to put on the Conservative Party Archive and the British Library Archive? Isn't those things that don't put them in a favourable eye? Is it only going to be their victory and their successes and the things that they actually are shouting about, as opposed to the things that are actually the low point? Anyway, this was the reply I received from the Conservative Party. So here's a story I definitely wanted to be talking about today, a rabbit hole that is reality, and that is in regards to the story that was brought to the press, brought to the attention of the public by Colin Freeman. He is a journalist over at The Telegraph, in the story that he broke regarding the Italian woman who came to England on a work trip, and then the Essex Social Services obtained a court order, sedated the mother, and then had the child taken from her by a forced caesarean section. Now I want to talk about the story because I think there's a hidden story to this, and I'm going to explain what that is. But first of all, we need to cover the case in some depth first, because we can't really talk. If we're going to talk about it, we need to talk about the facts that go into it. So basically, we'll read Colin Freeman's article, and we'll go from there. Okay, so it says that the council was acting in the best interests of the woman, because she suffered a bit of a breakdown when she was over here. The baby girl is now 15 months old. It's still in the care of social services, who refuse to give it back to the mother, even though it's now been proven that she has actually made a full recovery. Now this, of course, understandably, has developed into an international row, between lawyers, understandably. You got the one council saying that they're acting in the best interests of the child. Do you not think that perhaps they should have consulted the family beforehand? Involved the Italian social services? No, that's not what happened. Essex Social Services got a High Court judgment passed, and then literally had her sedated, and then forcibly removed the child by caesarean section. I don't think there's any other word to describe this other than absolutely disgusting. That's actually two words other than one word. I know, I understand that, but it sets such a precedent. I mean, this could happen now more than once. A judge made this call. It can now be called into effect again and again. Where will it stop? Where's the buck going to end with this one? Now, the story I wanted to talk about that is underlying this is what kind of powers do social services actually have to make this kind of jump call? We didn't even make any attempts of communication with the Italian social services. In all fairness, I mean, we're conjecturing that, but we're speculating. We don't actually know what communication level did actually happen. But can you imagine being a mother and you wake up in hospital, knowing you've been sedated for X amount of hours, and you're looking down, the fact that you're looking for where your baby is, and you've got a massive hole in your stomach, and your baby is not there, and now 15 months has passed, and that image has got to be in your head haunting you, the fact that you have not even seen your child in all that time. Horrible, absolutely horrible. A few of the strange things that happened around this case, it appears to be that the lawyers have put forth that they wanted to know why Essex Social Services did not even contact a next of kin and to consult them about the case. They're also upset why the child is being held in Britain, when in fact there's actually been family, friends and family members who have put forth that they will take care of it. Now, an expert on social care proceedings, who's asked not to be named, says, because she's not fully acquainted with the case, she says it's extremely and highly unusual. And the council has actually said they will not comment on any case that is presently ongoing. So what do you think about this? You as a person, you as an individual, I want to hear your views. I want to hear what you have to say and what you think about this case. Tweet me on Twitter at @DefineChristian. Tell the world, tell the people how you think about this. This story can be found on the Telegraph website, and you can find the links and the URL in the description below. And you can also find the links here on the main website, rabbithole.co.uk. Let's head stateside and talk about another story that has hit the headlines this past week. In fact, there's a story that actually comes close to some people's hearts because it is fundamentally about faith. And that is, this book is known as To Train Up a Child. It is written by Michael and Debbie Pearl. These are two fundamentalist Christians who believe that children should be taught in a certain way according to religious doctrine and practice. The book is extremely controversial, namely that last year 2 children died through the practices that were being put upon them. And this is exactly what we're talking about it today, as 2 further children have also died due to the practices of what have been put forth in this book as a way to punish your child. So let's work ourselves through this story that was published in the New York Times. So 2 parents in Washington State have been found guilty of murder due to the abusive parenting techniques advocated in this book. Now, Larry and Carrie Williams have been have received a maximum prison sentence allowable by law due to having been found guilty of starving their adopted child to death and being found guilty of multiple accounts of beatings. The methods used to discipline their daughter are advocated in this very controversial Kristian book. Yeah, one night last May, the adopted girl, so it wasn't even their biological child, Hannah, was found face down naked and emaciated in the back garden. The death was caused by hypothermia and malnutrition. According to the sheriff's report, the parents had deprived her of food for multiple days and made her sleep in a cold barn or in a shower outside with a hose. They whipped her, leaving marks on her legs. The mother had praised Pearl's book and had even given copies to friends. It's also worth noting on the day of Hannah's actual death, she had actually already received a beating by Mr. Pearl with a 15-inch plastic tube. But this technique is actually in the book. Now, this is what I find sickening about this book. I'm going to acquire this book to read it through. Now, Mr. Pearl tells a mother on one website that I could break his anger in 2 days. He will be so angry on the third day he will only obey. This is by the author of the book, this is. Now, some of the techniques that are included in this book that the Pearls teach, using plastic tubing to beat children as it's too light to cause damage to tissue, muscle and bone. Wearing the plastic tubing around the child's neck will be a constant reminder and a warning to obey. Swatting babies as young as 6 months old with instruments such as a willow branch, thin plastic tubing or even wooden spoons. Blanket training for babies by hitting them with an instrument if they try to crawl off the blanket onto the floor, will teach them to obey. Beating older children with rulers, paddles, belts, and large tree branches is also highly suggestible. Children training with pain even before they disobey in order to teach total obedience. Giving cold water baths to children or putting children outside and withholding meals as discipline. Hosing children who have potty training accidents and inflicting punishment until a child is without breath to complain. The Pearls and their ministry state that no greater joy. Well, in fact, they've actually made 1.7 million a year based on the sales of this book alone, and they claim to have sold 625,000 copies. So this book clearly has a following. That also means that it's also happening, perhaps in a house somewhere near close to where you live. So what do you think about this? Do you think this kind of controversial training happening to children is actually okay? Do you think the methods put forth by Michael and Debbie Pearl are actually completely acceptable in any understanding of modern society and the way that a parent should be teaching their child? I actually think that parents are actually scared of raising their children, and I think that's the real reason why people are looking to their books, to people who are perhaps successful in that sense, that they want to emulate them. It's not really just about, the fundamental teachings and these kind of followings. People also are quite willing to jump on the fad wagon. And by the fad wagon, I mean things like, if I look at dieting, for instance, you had things in the Atkins diet, the high-fat, low-carb diet, the eat only eggs on a Sunday diet but have sugar at the weekend diet. It's ridiculous how many diets things there are. These things come and they go. They're complete fads. But what is worrying about this is aiming at parents who are scared. They need control of their children. This also aims at those who are fundamentalist in the sense of their faith. This is also being aimed at the faith community. And of course, if you say anything against anyone's faith, you're actually being discriminatory. So, even now, will there be Christian fundamentalists who are going to be contacting me and going, you can't say anything about this book, this is how it is in the Bible, this is how we should be teaching it, this is how children should be being disciplined and being punished? I have to say no, and I'll stick my finger up in your face, and I'll have to say, no, the way you teach a child is by love, by experience, and by giving trust. Allow that child to go and explore places. Ward them away from things that you actually know are going to be dangerous. Don't let them go in the bleach cupboard, for instance. But let them explore. Let them know what is okay, what is not okay. Sure, a child is going to always be inquisitive. But to hold that back, so they never ask any questions, that you're always in control of them, that is a worrying and dangerous precedent to set. Because that will indoctrinate that child for life in terms of methodology, in terms of experience, and in terms of how it also will develop relationships with other people. Will it effectively fall into a situation where, as that person evolves, and as that person develops, when it comes to intimacy, when it comes to sexuality, when that person, that child, has now grown to maturity and is looking to have those kind of experiences, what's going to happen when you have a twisted sense of morality and experience when it comes to having and sharing love? Know for well that it's received a beating every time it can and can't do stuff. What kind of damaged mindset will that create? And for that person to then go on and potentially have a child, that person then to go on and have a bonding with perhaps another person who's got their own children, this is going to fastly become a very warped scenario of total extremes. In one sense, this is quite difficult to say, but at the same time, it's equally not so. I want to say I'm an advocate of free speech, and I want you to have an opinion. So I don't wish this book to be banned, but what I do wish this book to be is to be renamed How Not to Treat Your Child. So whilst in store this week, there was a organisation in store, and they were a fostering organisation, and there was a couple who were in store. They were really nice. The lady was really nice. She was really quite friendly to me, and she had a lot of things to say about her organisation. Of course, I probed a few more questions and learned a little more. That's when things started to take an interesting twist, shall we say. Now, this company, I guess I can't mention them. I don't know, because they're not here to defend themselves. That's the kind of things I'm going to be saying about them right now. So it's unfair to state their name. But what she said bothered me. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm completely for fostering, where situations where you have children in the care system who are looking for support, they're looking for they're looking for a loving home, where they can learn, they can be loved, and they can grow, and obviously have essentially a normal childhood. So through the vein of conversation, I asked a bit more about her organisation. But I was confused, in fact, perhaps in my own ignorance that I was unaware of. That is, I didn't know that there was private foster companies. I thought all care system in the UK was actually all dealt with by the city councils and by the government care system, effectively. I was unaware that there was a private system with that as well. So I decided to ask her a few more questions about this. And she went on to be quite proud of the fact that there is, indeed, in the last 4 to 6 years, she said, there's been a massive boom in private fostering, where the state can't take care of children, so it funds private organisations, so it gives them money to private organisations who run private care homes, effectively, for children. And that business has never been so good. Quote. Which, when you think about it, is that so if they're a profit-based business, their only form of money comes from the government, therefore it is in their interest to have more children in the care system to raise more money. This was the cogs that was working in my head, and I was going, this is a bit dodgy. So I says, well, how does the referral system work? How does it go from one care system to another? And she says, well, effectively what happens is the government can't take care of all the children that don't have a home. Otherwise, they would become homeless. So organisations like ourselves are set up in order to basically work as a catcher for these people. And since then, they've now got closer links to the government and to the social services and the councils of each district. And so I was like, okay. I says, well, who refers them to you? And I says, well, and then she then says, we have our own private social services. You what? She says, well, our organisation has grown and doubled in the last 2 years alone, and before that we were doing really well as well. But since then, we're now we're now looking for social workers. We're now looking for resident people in the community. We're now looking for those who are they're doing a recruitment drive for those who can take care of fostering, because their network's grown so big, and they've now got so many children coming under them, because more children are being taken away from their natural homes. So again, the cogs are working and going, what? So you have private social services who are of the same company, who are taking, or essentially deciding children are not suitable with their parents, and they would then be directed into the same company's, same corporation's childcare system. Again, who pays for this? The government pays for it. So it's in their best interest to take as many children out of natural, nurturing environments to place them in that system. And that's like, I'd like to learn a bit more about this. And she's like, well, I'm not sure how much more I can say, but here's some contact details, and here's a leaflet, and you can find out more about the organisation. So what effectively we have here, we have cause and effect in motion, don't we? We have essentially social services who are over capacity in the sense they have something to do, so they're employing. The government is funding and fulfilling contractual needs with private social service organisations and private care home organisations, and it is in their best interest to make money because they're a private company, of course. So the government is funding these third-party companies, private companies, to effectively work as social services for them. And it is their job in order to make money. Therefore, they should be taking children out of that situation, out of their nurturing, family, loving homes, and then placing them into their own care system, of which the government is also paying them for. And no wonder business is so good. No wonder business is good. Because there's so many out there right now. I asked her about how many private organisations there are now with their own care system and their own social services. And she says there must be hundreds across these Midlands. Hundreds. These profit-driven mechanisms are not there for the laws of nature and the laws of family. They're there purely driven by profit, purely driven by greed and the capitalist dogma system that we have in place. This socio-economic system is not there for the family. This is there literally to line the pockets and the coffers of the most rich and to make them richer. I keep wondering, honestly, do the councils of the country not facepalm themselves on a regular basis? Because this story here is just ridiculous. This story here is a council report that was leaked that recommends using all available bylaws to ban soup kitchens that are feeding the homeless and the poor. Yeah, this is just a terrible story, really. This comes out of Croydon. The Croydon Advertiser ran this story this week, and it says how a soup kitchen run by volunteers and is set up by the charity called Night Watch provides food and drink and sometimes up to 50 people in an evening in Queen's Gardens. Now, a secret council report that has been leaked says that the soup kitchen is causing antisocial behaviour in the town centre and is affecting nearby business. And as such, the council have decided to start off a measure that they're working towards a termination of the current situation. Now, the Night Watchman chairman, Jad Adams, says a ban would be immoral, politically inept, and will be open to legal challenge. And I certainly agree with him on this one. The voluntary organisation, actually the charity, has won Voluntary Organisation of the Year award last year, awarded by the council. Now, the effects here is to prevent them from using Queen's Gardens, which it has done so for over 30 years, to help feed the poor and help feed the homeless, and those who are less fortunate and have found themselves in a situation where they are needing that kind of assistance. It says here that a soup kitchen ban is part of a wider effort to tackle antisocial behaviour and drinking in the town. The council have commented and says there is a conflict and difficulty in organising people into a queuing system, the council report states. Well, police do not agree, and data supports the police view. They say there's no issue at all. There's no problem. The soup kitchen attracts individuals that are actively targeting the area. The short-term enforcement phase is working well, and we're now at a stage where we can be addressing more on long-term solutions. But removing the soup kitchen, we believe, forms part of that approach, the council have said, and it would mean there's no reason for drinkers and beggars to congregate in this area, and therefore reducing crime and antisocial behaviour in the town centre. I think this is completely ridiculous. This basically is just we need to clean up the town, stop supporting our homeless. They don't make us any money, of course. There's no profit. There's no benefit to actually feeding the homeless and the poor. Therefore, let's hide them away. Let's tuck them away. Let's put them somewhere else or send them somewhere. Of course, we could do what London's doing and make it illegal to be homeless. Do what Hungary and what Brazil do. We can go and actively and hunt the homeless and have them shot. By legalised death squads, as you paid for by the government. Bear in mind, we do appear to be not too far away from that precedent in the way that we're treating those who have found themselves in situations of abject poverty. I mean, look at how the country is now. We got more people who are homeless than ever. We have more people who are literally verging on losing their homes, losing their houses, and there appears to be no shortage of those willing to put them in that situation either. They can't, so the banks don't seem to care. All they care about is making as much money as possible, and the homeless don't make any money. There appears to be a total failure to grasp the context of the situation here. These people need help, they need assistance. Social Security is there to provide that assistance. The Big Issue organisation helps these people too. They're help them find jobs, help them learn valuable skills. And soup kitchens have been a time-honoured British tradition in a sense. Going back hundreds and hundreds of years, helping those who are in positions that are less fortunate. And this soup kitchen happens to have been there in 37 years. Surely, if there's been a problem, it would have risen before now. I can understand in some way that soup kitchens now, of course, are being bombarded by unprecedented amounts of people. But if that doesn't make a statement about society, what will? A rabbit hole that is reality. We want you to be safe on the internet. We want you to be able to browse the internet, go to the websites that you want to, and be free from surveillance, free from control, and the ability to use the internet in a way that it was intended to be. A free space where people can talk, can communicate, and can share information for the greater good of humanity. It really is the last vestige of free speech there is across the world, and it really does provide us this platform. Indeed, one of our projects we've got coming up at the present time is we want to be giving you support, a bit of encouragement as well, to how to go about being more secure on the internet, and how about taking a bit more personal responsibility for our safety for yourself and others. You will see on our YouTube channel we are setting up a number of tutorials on how to go about setting up things like how to use Tor, how to set it up, how to set up using the pirate browser, how to use a VPN. This is really what we want to be talking about today. What is a VPN? Why is it important? And why should you use one? What even is one? It's probably the first question that a lot of people ask. What is a VPN? Why should I even care? Why should I even be interested? Well, in fact, you should be interested. A VPN actually is very simple. It's a virtual private network connection. And this makes two things happen. It achieves two technical results. And a VPN cloaks and encrypts your signal, making your online activity illegible to any eavesdroppers. It includes GCHQ and NSA having a good look over you. It manipulates your IP address, which is your internet protocol address, and makes you appear as if you're coming from a different machine, location, or country. It can slow down your connection a little bit, but there are good reasons to cloak your activities and change your IP address. And why is that? Well, let's have a look. Let's go down and say top 5 reasons perhaps why you should do this. Now, a lot of people use public Wi-Fi. You go to McDonald's, you go to Starbucks, you go to Asda. Many places now are just offering like free Wi-Fi. When you're in there, you're not safe. And in fact, anything on your device is completely viewable. Did you know that? So if you've got your phone out and you're sat there in McDonald's, or you got your laptop out, anyone who's in there can have a look at any of the files on your PC. It's not safe. Especially when it comes to confidential mail or browsing. So either of using a VPN actually will prevent that from happening. Now, a VPN, they come at a bit of a cost. Some of them average between £5 to £6 a month. Highly recommend doing so. But these are the kind of things you need to be protected by. Now, if you say look at downloading or uploading P2P files in complete privacy, the idea where you perhaps want to share your music, you want to share your collections and your information with other people, you don't want people eavesdropping on what that is. This will do that. It will allow you to masquerade for file sharing, really. You can bypass a country's censorship and content surveillance. So, for instance, if you wanted to watch, a good example, if say you wanted to go to the Comedy Central website or watch an episode of South Park over in the US before it's aired here, you could be able to do so. If, for instance, if you thought about how countries like, example, in China you have the Great Firewall of China. You have places like in Saudi Arabia, Syria, Belarus, they limit and survey the internet completely and utterly. In fact, this will allow you to tunnel into that, or indeed out of it. So it would conceal your page-by-page web activity. When they're finding in the UK, they actually want real-time watching of what is on your screen, which is worrying to fuck. I mean, I don't really do anything illegal, but I don't think the government or GCHQ or any eavesdropping organisation really wants to watch what's on my screen. I mean, I do recording, I play games, I watch stuff, I use the internet for information gathering purposes. I don't really want them watching me being safe. I don't think that makes me feel safe. And a VPN will provide that level of protection for you. You could, if you use voice over IP, for instance, if you use services such as Link, or whether you use Skype or VoIP, or whether you're using TeamSpeak, for instance, or even Google Hangouts. But you can have, that rich kind of conversation happening without the fact that it's being recorded by somebody. It's in Skype's terms and conditions that your call is being recorded by them, after all. For instance, if you were to use a search engine, your searches are being logged. Bing, Google, Yahoo, and all that likes, they're recording your IP address, they're customizing advertising, they're sending information to your PC via the cookies. They know exactly what's on your PC, they know exactly what you're looking at, and they want to know why. They are building up a personal profile of you as an individual, and the kind of things that you like and want and need, or what they want you to want, to like and need. I don't think that should happen. I'm all in favour of kind of customised information around it, which is kind of useful, but I don't want everyone knowing everything about me as a person. We believe that privacy is a basic right, and not for any of the reasons that are withstanding above. If you're a firm believer that your personal privacy, the right to broadcast and receive without being surveyed, catalogued by authorities, or whatever the biggest philosophical reason is, it's worth just paying a few pounds a month and getting a virtual private network connection sorted. This appears to be a sensible place to pause for thought and to take a break. So we're going to catch you on the other side, where we're going to be talking about Comet ISON, separating the bullshit from the reality, and also checking out the Fortean stories as well. So we shall see you on the other side.
The biggest threat to the internet you've probably never heard of. The TPP is the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. TPP is a trade agreement being negotiated between more than 12 countries around the Pacific region. It has more than 26 chapters, and it covers a broad spectrum of issues, from trade of dairy, meat, textiles, and automobiles, to financial regulation, to labor regulations, and more. But one chapter poses a huge threat to the internet. The chapter concerning intellectual property enforcement. We can't exactly know what's in that chapter because TPP is being negotiated in secret through a series of backroom deals that shut out the public. Trade officials won't release the text of the agreement or even tell us what their policy positions are on any issue. One thing we know is that while the public is shut out of the negotiating process, private corporate interests aren't. In particular, big content industries are spending ginormous amounts of money in lobbying to convince policymakers that more aggressive and draconian copyright laws will lead to more innovation, more creativity, and more jobs. But in reality, that just isn't the case. If adopted, the copyright enforcement measures proposed in the TPP could make the internet intimidating and repressive. Users will be afraid to view, share, and interact with digital content. An early version of the text has been leaked, and you should be worried about what's inside. Internet service providers could be forced to become private copyright enforcers, lest they risk liability for the content posted by their users. While the TPP includes certain protection from liability, experience with similar provisions in the US suggests that ISPs will be encouraged to take down, filter, and block legitimate content, requiring only a private notice from an alleged copyright holder. Fans should not be treated like criminals, and companies should not get an automatic veto over user creativity, choice, and innovation. These are only some of the problems with the TPP's copyright enforcement provisions. They would be harmful for everyone, except for companies that use these policies to suppress innovative competitors or to criminalize sharing. Instead of spending their resources to create new products that respect the internet and new technologies, they're lobbying for policies that would hinder and break them. Internet users need to know what is going on in these secret trade negotiations. Internet users have a right to participate in this powerful international deal that will impact millions of lives for decades to come. Let's show our policymakers that we won't let backroom trade deals determine what we can do with our technology. Let's show them that we, the users, are unified against corporate efforts to restrict our rights. The internet is ours. It's up to us to defend it.
The rabbit hole that is reality. Across the spectrum of topical talk, news that raises an eyebrow, science, technology, the environment, mysteries, strange tales, and the Fortean, that is both informative and entertaining. As you spread our wings and catch our stride, you can find us now on the web, rabbitholethatisreality.co.uk, where you can listen, download, and watch all the episodes produced so far. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/rabbitholethatisreality, or follow the presenters on Twitter @DefineChristian and @Sylvia Dragoon for commentary, insight, and conversation. This is the rabbit hole that is reality. Welcome back to the Rabbit Hole That Is Reality radio podcast. My name is Kristian Lander and I am your host here today for episode 15. Get in touch, send me a tweet. You can tweet me at DefineChristian. You can send us a message on Facebook. Our Facebook page is the Rabbit Hole That Is Reality, and you can message us on the website as well, rabbitholethatisreality.co.uk. Get in touch, we want to hear from you, we want to listen to your stories and the discussions that we talk about. So, coming up next, we're going to be talking about Comet ISON and the bullshit that's come with it, separating fact from fiction. This is going to be our feature today. So why are we going to be talking about Comet ISON? Because it's taken on a bit of a life of its own. Indeed, that could be, in fact, one of the stories we could be talking about, because believe me, I've heard some crazy stories about it this week. Now, I've had an interest in astronomy ever since I was a very young boy. I've been looking at the skies with adoration, and quite humbling when I consider the universe of the amount of places and locations and the sheer magnitude of what is up there, and what are the possibilities of it all. But when it comes to humanity and our fears of what's in space, there are always moments where they appear to take a grip hold. A good example would be something like Nibiru, based out of the Anunnaki texts and of the translations of Zecharia Sitchin's works with the cuneiform texts on his own variant translations, where apparently there is a planetoid body that apparently orbits on a 3,600-year cycle that apparently comes through our solar system, and apparently aliens from that planet come to Earth and they go back again. Apparently they need gold to repair their atmosphere, so they made humans to be a slave race for this process, and they would come back around 3,600 years later. Fear was, in 2012, virtually every discussion I heard, oh, Nibiru's coming, and it was just ridiculous, it was just silly. You had Comet ISON, of course, that was last year as well. In fact, ISON on its own was actually discovered by a Russian amateur astronomer, ISON, and everyone took it, but who didn't know that, they believed the ELE at the beginning of it meant the extinction level event. Coming out of the film, what was it called, Deep Impact, where that phrase was used, and it's become since then publicly aware definition of initials that can mean an extinction level event. We've had 6 certainly in our history on planet Earth, which probably means we are due for another one. It's part of our cycles in our universe, and they thought ISON was in fact part of that process, and that was a code word being used by the American government and NASA and so on. But people really do crazy things when it comes to only having a small amount of information they believe might be more than it actually is. Take, for instance, the Hale-Bopp comet and the Heaven's Gate cult from 1997. You know, I can actually remember watching this, the comet go by in the sky, absolutely brilliant. However, some people over in, I believe it's California, let me just have a look, I've got the news story right here. Yeah, that was 15 years ago, so March 26, 1997, 39 members of the Heaven's Gate cult committed suicide. They believed they were going to be transported, their souls moved to the spaceship that was orbiting the Hale-Bopp comet. You know, crazy stories. There was the guy who ran that cult was a guy called Marshall Applegate. He was like 65 years of age, I seem to remember, and he had many mental health issues. In fact, he'd been taken. In fact, he himself went to a psychiatric hospital many times in his life under his own volition. However, it didn't stop people from following him, thinking he was the reincarnation of Jesus, I believe it was, and he thought that essentially God and angels and heaven were the spaceship that was orbiting Hale-Bopp comet would lead them to salvation. So, in a pact, many of them decided to commit suicide in 3 waves. And when they have a lack of information, they make the most rash decisions, and these are unfortunately the kind of events that occur. And of course, the fear of cults that comes with that. And of course, ISON, this is what we're going to be talking about right now. ISON indeed has this kind of almost cult following that's happening on the internet. I've been watching over the last month or so. I've been seeing the stories that are out there and some of the interesting stuff that Comet ISON has been doing. So what we want to be doing this time here on Rabbit Hole It's Reality is kind of addressing both of those simultaneously. I don't quite know how that's going to happen, but let's just talk about some of the crazy stuff that people are saying. I heard that it was a UFO. I heard that apparently it was some kind of alien mothership coming to Earth. I've heard that it is the remnants of Nibiru. I've also read that it is a probe sent by the Galactic Federation of Light to observe us here on Earth. I've read also that it's the recurrence of a comet that came by in 1680. Actually, this was actually wrote on the National Geographic website in September 2012. The fact that it's following the same trajectory as it comes towards the Earth, not that it actually was or is the same one. Of course, that great comet in 1680 was known for making many paintings and etchings across Europe. There's paintings in Holland and Italy, Germany, even here in England, that were inspired by what they saw in the sky. But what actually is it? Well, in fact, if you know about the solar system, you have the Sun at the centre, then you have the 4 inner circle planets, then you have the asteroid belt, then you have the outer planets. But far beyond the outer planets is what's called the Oort cloud, which basically is a surrounding sphere of dust and particles made from the creation of our solar system. And they, of course, get knocked together occasionally, and they knock against each other. And occasionally what will happen is one of them will fly into the solar system, and over time, over periods of many, very long periods of time, it will find its way to the inner solar system, will swing around the sun, through the perihelion, and will go back out again. And this exactly is what our sun was. It was a one-timer. Unfortunately, it seems people are bound not to like facts, and they also believe that people who give us the facts are in fact feeding us false information, which of course has led to thousands of blogs and hundreds of YouTube videos and people spouting all kinds of crap. So here we are. Let's separate this bullshit from the reality. The fact is, Comet ISON, also referred to as C2012S1, it was discovered in 2012 in September last year by a chap over in Russia. It disappeared for a while, in fact. They couldn't find it. But then Bruce Gary, who's an astrophysicist with NASA, he located it in mid-August this year. And since then, despite the comments of what the naysayers are saying, but it hasn't been in the mainstream media and it hasn't been in the mainstream press. Why are they not covering it? In fact, there's loads of stories about it. In fact, I found many just on a quick search here today, just for a bit of research. As ISON came into the inner solar system, I passed the asteroid belt into passing Mars and Earth, Venus, to Mercury, as it goes towards the Sun. In fact, ISON actually helped us learn something we didn't know about our inner solar system. The fact that it actually it's electrically charged. When it came past Mars, it actually interacted with the Mars atmosphere. So that gave us an indication that Mars still has a charged atmosphere. And we didn't know that until that point. That was still considered to be not even a discussion. Now, of course, it's scientific fact. But of course, that itself spurred on many more stories that in fact it's an alien probe and it's zapping the atmosphere and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. The fear is that it will do that to the Earth as well, and we're going to have massive blackouts on the Earth, like A lot of people are referencing the 1859 comet that wiped out most of the telegraph system. They think that kind of thing is going to happen again due to our heavy dependence on technology. You know, mathematically, it is going to happen. You know, statistically, that will happen. We will get struck by a comet or an asteroid or a meteorite, or some kind of space weather will actually affect the Earth in the form of perhaps a CME from the Sun. You know, it's just a matter of time, really. We know that is going to happen statistically, rather than unlikely not happening. But of course, everyone's focused on the fact that ISON might be that. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the case at all. Anyone who's ever looked at any facts or any information will know that is completely not the case. The idea is that it would in fact be one of the brightest objects we've seen in the sky, but it is in fact over 40 million miles away from the Earth, should it even survive the perihelion. And again, I understand there are those who don't know what that means. The perihelion is basically when it goes closest to the Sun, it gets sped up around the back of it as it orbits it, and basically gets shot out back into the solar system. And when it passes back past the Earth, it will be the closest passing solar object we've had for quite some time. It's certainly going to pass closer than the Moon is, and should it be as bright as the predictions say they are, before the perihelion, it will be brighter than the Moon. Now we know that it has actually gone through the perihelion. It didn't survive, or rather it did, but it is certainly in a much lesser form than it was. It's obviously cast off a lot of dust, a lot of material that has either been evaporated or has been destroyed in terms of heat. It passed within 1 million miles of the Sun. This ISON was heated to a tremendous heat, therefore it has lost a lot of its mass. So what will happen is the remnants of it, it's certainly much smaller than what it was, is going to come back past the Earth, and it might not even now be visible at all to the naked eye when it comes past us. So what this proves scientifically is that ISON is no longer a threat, it's no longer a fear. Although, of course, as it passes the Earth on its closer vector, it may in fact do shed some of the dust, and that will hit the atmosphere, which could indeed create a rather beautiful aurora borealis as it strikes the atmosphere, or these stones might just pass through or probably burn up on contact with the atmosphere. That is the most likely scenario, and one more than likely scenario, rather than the deep impact Armageddon type fear that unfortunately the internet audience has created. Now when ISON, or rather the remnants of ISON, are due to pass the Earth, it's going to be on Boxing Day. It's going to be on December the 26th. If indeed we can see it at all, it's going to be at its brightest at dawn. It's going to be really high in the sky, then it's going to appear quite low towards the horizon come evening. If we see it at all. And what we might see is literally just a faint blur. All that it appears apparent across many of the blogs, many of the written words across the internet in discussing the fears of ISON, shall we say, the romance in many ways. If you head over to nasa.gov, you can see all the latest ISON images as they come in live. There's loads of video feeds coming in of ISON as it passes through all the stages. It goes towards the Sun and comes round. Have the likes of isoncampaign.org. They've got a majority of the feeds up there coming in live. So whatever happens, be informed, make a rational decision. It's not the end of the world. It's not the coming of the 10 plagues, which I saw a post reporting that in fact ISON was the cause of the 10 plagues of Egypt under Ramesses II. So in summary, what has really happened? All that's really happened is this comet has come from the Oort galaxy, has come through the outer solar system, through the asteroid belt, into the inner solar system. It's swung past the Earth once already. It's going to go around the Sun, at the perihelion. It's going to go back out, whatever remains of it. It's going to come back past the Earth on December 26th. It might be bright, it might be dull, there might be something, there might be nothing. Now please consider yourself fully informed, and if someone says anything to you about Ramesses, or someone says anything to you about Naboru, or someone says anything about the Galactic Federation of Light, or anything like that, you grab them by the neck and you slap them around the face and say, "Shut up, I know exactly what really happened." Reason over ignorance. So welcome to the strange and weird and wonderful corner of the rabbit hole that is reality. This isn't going to be a snapshot of some of the stories that have caught our eye across the news that just makes us laugh, makes us chuckle, raises an eyebrow and goes, what the fuck is wrong with people? The funny ones too. So let's just take a look at Amazon. In fact, Amazon are intending to have their packages delivered by drones by 2015, 2016, which of course could be a feature story in itself. But the reason it's in the Fortean corner is because Waterstones have ingeniously come up with a a brilliant idea to sideline all the media and the PR pressure of that. Waterstones they put an advert on the internet basically, and they got their owl service. For £2.75 we'll have specially trained owls deliver your favourite books to your front door. I mean, absolutely genius, fun marketing, and that's the kind of thing that'll make you go, I fuck Amazon, I like Waterstones, they're funny. And they have a good sense of humour. So, whether they'll actually having real owls deliver things to your door, highly doubt it. It probably just means they're going to be doing a very similar service, potentially in the future, where they're going to be having drones come along to your door. I still wonder though, can drones detect people? You got this drone that comes down from the sky and then comes down to your front door or comes down your street and it accidentally, clips the head of the postman. What's going to happen? Me and my son on Saturday, we were talking about the Jeremy Kyle show, so you can kind of know where this perhaps is going to go, with a few ribs and jibes in there, about how the quality of the guests on the show leaves a lot to be desired. But, I showed him the Jerry Springer show. I showed him a couple of episodes. I went to YouTube and I found a couple of shows in there, and one of them, in fact, the first episode was pretty funny. The next clip I showed him was this guy who says, "I've married my horse," which of course would be a story in itself. But so today I saw a story on the Metro. It's on the metro.co.uk. Man jailed for having sex with a goat faces his own victim in court. This was posted today. A man was found guilty of having sex with a goat. He's been jailed for 10 years after facing his victim in court. His name was Katana Gona. He's 28. He admitted sexually abusing the animal in the Kenyan town of Malindi. The female goat watched quietly in the corner of the courtroom, it says, as the attacker was jailed for bestiality. How he got caught was the fact that a resident was passing the field and heard a commotion in the bush, and then obviously came over to have a look. That person went and got the goat's owner. They then watched and witnessed the assault on the animal, and then he's been arrested for having sex with a goat. I mean, can you imagine? There you are, you're in the courtroom, and you get your head in your hands because you're far too embarrassed by this story, and the judge is reading out what's happened. This is the story. You there, Mr. whatever his name was, you've been caught having sex with a goat. Prosecution, could you bring your first witness, please? And then the goat walks in. What at that moment is going through your mind? This time we're going to be ending on a coincidence, in fact. Now, last week I was forced to endure the Leonardo DiCaprio movie, The Titanic. Say with it what you will, but that's not... So, it inspired what it is we're going to be talking about this moment right now. This is somewhat known and somewhat unknown. Now, the story of the Titanic is, of course, April 1912, travelling from Southampton to New York, the luxury liner hit an iceberg and sank. Okay? And that 2,000 plus lives were lost. Now, for those who didn't know, in 1898 there was a book called Futility by an author called Morgan Robertson. Now, he described a story, and in this story it was the maiden voyage of a transatlantic luxury liner called the Titan. So this is 14 years earlier, and it was touted as being completely unsinkable. It strikes an iceberg and loses most of the lives on board. And in 1912, the Titanic, a transatlantic luxury liner touted as being unsinkable, strikes an iceberg and sinks with a great loss of life on her maiden voyage. Now, in this book, the month of the wreck was April, much as the real event. There was 3,000 passengers in the book of Futility. There was 2,207 on the actual Titanic. In terms of lifeboats, both were undermanned. They both had an under level of lifeboats. Now, months after the Titanic sank, now, it may be that you knew that story. It may be that you knew that someone may have had some kind of precognitive ability or wrote a story that resembles real life 14 years later. It might be that you know that. What a lot of people don't know is there actually is another coincidence to this story. Now, months after the Titanic sank, there was a steamer, and it was travelling across the Atlantic, and there was only a small boy on watch. Now, his story is that it came into his head that they were actually in the same area that the Titanic sank. And so he had this thought in his head when he looked at the name of his own ship. And the name of this ship with the titanium. So he was panic struck, and he sounded a warning, in blind panic, and he rang the bell. And then what happened after that is a huge iceberg literally loomed out of the fog directly in their path. And the titanium was saved. It's a true story. And this is the rabbit hole that is reality. My name is Kristian. Thank you for joining us here today on what was episode 15. So come and get social with us. Give us a chat up. Find us on Facebook. Find us on Twitter. You can find us on our website as well. On Facebook, it's the rabbit hole that is reality. On Twitter, it's at Define Kristian and at Sylvia Dragoon. You can find us also on our website, www.rabbithole.thatisreality, where you can listen, watch, download, and view any episode what we have produced so far, along with all the links and source material as well. So thank you once again for joining us. Here we are, signing off. Until next time.